I want you to move from overwhelmed by information to confident in what really matters. I want to help you move from being unsure towards direction and purpose in your healthcare. I want to introduce you to health experts. I want to let you in on tough conversations on women's health. I want to give you a place where you can lean in and learn how to take care of yourself. Let's transform your health. Let's get clear on your goals. This is Women's Health Unplugged. I'm your host, Dr. Jordan Robertson, naturopathic doctor. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I'm excited about this one. I feel like we're going to meld a couple of topics in here, talking a little bit about PMS and hormone-related mood challenges, and then the consequence of that on your habits, and why we need to change our mindset a little bit about habits in our 40s. I want to talk a little bit about two strategies that I think are really valuable. And there's lots of cool stuff published about habit change that I love, right? Like little tips and tricks around stacking your habits and whatnot. We're going to talk about a few sort of different angles of why I specifically think habit change in your 40s and beyond is so difficult, and what mindset little changes we need to make in the way we even talk about or think about our habits to help us potentially be more successful with them. I've recently I'm launching a 6-week habit change / perimenopause support program for the public. And it really made me sit down and think about how was it that I would help people when I was working with them one-on-one in my office? Like, what specifically was it that was happening that made those people change? What tools, what information did they need to hear that actually made them go home and be able to implement? And I've talked to my husband, and I talk about this all the time around healthcare and healthcare business and all of these kinds of things. Like, it's so difficult that we have this like short interaction with people. We give them some suggestions, recommendations, prescriptions, whatever it is. We then send them home, and their mental health, their resiliency, their support system, their even understanding of what you said has a massive impact on whether or not they can actually do the things that you ask them to do. And then if they did it, right, the odds would be that they would feel better, right? We're only prescribing things, hopefully, that have a statistical likelihood of helping you feel better if you do them. But we're asking people to do these things, and then they're rating their improvement on not really whether or not they did those things, right? They're like looking back at your appointment with them and being like, did that help me? Did it help me to go see that person? And it's so tough because that our whole reputation and our whole patient satisfaction is hinging on them doing the things. And of course that we picked the right things, but doing the things, right? Like that's actually what it hinges on. And so, my husband was a dentist, and for him, it would be like, they would do particular procedures, and then people would need to like floss and brush and then come back for appointments. And if they didn't do those things and the procedure failed, it's the dentist's fault, right? And similarly, we would give patients these sort of elaborate plans, send them home, and whether or not they could actually habit change was the most influential piece around whether or not they got better. So I sat down and I thought about it like really in depth. And I've never put anything out for the public because I've always wanted it to just literally feel like you and I were sitting at your kitchen table together, right? That's how I always wanted it to feel. I felt like if you like invited me over and you have a really good coffee maker and we sat down together and we shot the shit about your health, that you would be able to make change. And truthfully, that's actually kind of how my patient appointments always went. And maybe that's where the secret lied, right? Was that, yes, I got to spend more time with people, but also the way that we connected was in a way that made women feel like it was possible and that they were powerful and that we could strategically help them figure out how to make change in their life because we were sitting at my desk, which is, our figurative kitchen table. I definitely had a coffee, and we would literally shoot the shit to figure out how to make your life better. I've never put anything out to the public because I wanted to harness that feeling. And I was like, I don't know if you can change if that doesn't happen, right? If that magic doesn't happen, I don't know if you can get better. I don't know if we can make that happen in recorded content or a course or downloads. And so it's taken me years to figure out how we're going to put this together in a way that actually helps you. So the course is called Pillars of Perimenopause, and I've captured some of the essence of it today, which we're going to talk through, this habit piece. But essentially, that's a 6-week program that does two things simultaneously. One is it educates you. It educates you about the lab tests you need, about the HRT options that you may consider. It's literally all packaged up for you so that you can be a better health advocate. You can take all of this stuff to your doctor, whoever that is, and say, this is what I want. It also talks through some of the behavior change that you can make yourself that is probably having a negative impact currently on your hormones, but we could turn that around and have a very positive impact on your hormones and the way you feel during this phase of life. And on the top of all of that, there's a big discussion around habit change. And the 6 weeks actually moves you through, I don't like the word challenge, like health challenge, but it's this feeling that over 6 weeks, you are going to be accountable to yourself. You're going to be accountable to the program. We've got things in it that actually will help you track it. And you're going to feel like you're doing it in this 6-week window, almost like a health challenge. And I'm not against health challenges. Like, I've had some of the coolest realizations in my own health journey from health challenges where I, did this every day for 30 days, or I didn't do this for 2 months. We're pulling that feeling in so that you feel more accountable to the actual actions, because I think just consuming information and then doing nothing, or not having that accountability is where I've always struggled with this experience of sort of an online course. Like, how do I know you're actually going to even finish it? How do I know that you're going to do anything? We've captured that feeling. So it feels like we're having a conversation at your kitchen table. It also feels like we're doing a 6-week challenge together so that you actually feel better. I'm excited about it, and I would love to invite you to come to it. The first cohort starts May 1st, and we're running it cohort style. So you're all going to do it together at the same time. We've actually added a couple of live bonus calls, which is amazing, because we want to capture that feeling or that experience of what it's like to be in a course, program, challenge, whatever you want to call it, together. So that's part of the course. And the other cool thing that we did is we actually created a Jordan Perimenopause AI bot where you, for the 6 weeks of the course, get to ask this AI bot questions about perimenopause. And it's built from my knowledge database on perimenopause, which is really kind of cool. Anyway, so it's open right now, and because it is the first cohort, we're offering it at a 50% discount because you guys are going to be going through it for the first time, and we're offering those couple of extra bonuses. So it is 50% off what it will be in the future. And truthfully, it's like the cost of the course right now is less than what it would be for 1 hour of an appointment with me. And I feel like that's also such a cool thing to create the accessibility for integrative support in naturopathic medicine, where that maybe otherwise wouldn't be possible for some people. So I'm super proud of that. But one of the big pillars of the discussion is around habits, habit change, how I need you to think about your habits in the context of your hormones. Someone asked me the other day on Instagram, what can I do in the moment for my PMS? And I was like, well, nothing, actually. Like, The problem with hormonal health is that it's built on days and days and weeks of your health. So if you've got like super bad PMS this month, you kind of have to look back at your last like 90-ish days and ask yourself, like, how did I do? Right? Like, what was I doing the things that I needed in order to support myself in the last 90 days? And that 90 days is kind of arbitrary, but in theory, we start recruiting follicles like 90 days before they're actually released. But that 90 days I've chosen as sort of the most research on PMS is on 3 months of treatment. And so if we were to think about like the opposite of treatment, we would maybe guess that it would be about the same amount of time for us to dumpster fire our PMS with bad habits if it takes 90 days for us to see any change for the positive for good habits. So, but the 90 days is kind of arbitrary. But that's part of the problem with supporting hormonal health is that it's days and days of very small habits that make or break how we feel. And there is nothing awesome about that, like nothing. It's not easy to sell that like as a pitch, like yeah, do this one thing just for the next like 2 years and then your hormones will totally be better. Nobody wants that. And so the consistency at which our good habits have to happen is really high for us to have a noticeable difference. And because we're so darn resilient women, you can scrape by for so long before you really have a problem. And then by the time you really have a problem, you're like, give me a pill for this. Right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I feel the same way. I would like to push my body to the absolute limit. Once I've figured out what that limit is, I would like to take some sort of tablet for all of the problems and pain to go away. That's what I want. And so I feel like you probably want that too. But the difficulty is that that's not actually how it works, which is why habit change has to become one of the foundations around good health so that every day you're doing the things that are required. So we're going to talk through a couple things that I want you to do here. And actually, there's three tips we're going to go through. I said two at the beginning. There's really three. So the first thing is that I need you to talk about the habit a little differently than you do in your head and to other people. So, you know, when they do those sort of goal setting workshops and they have you speak as if the thing has already happened, right? Like, and so it's not like, I wish I had a better job. It's like, I have a better job. I've always found that super awkward to say whatever your goal is in the future. However, when we're talking about habits, and because I need you to stay connected to those habits longer than you want to, you have to start talking about them as if they've already helped. Right? Have you seen that meme where it's like, I'm going to go for a stupid walk for my stupid mental health? I want you to talk about those habits you're doing in the opposite way of that. This makes my mental health better. I'm going for a walk today because it really helps my mood. And you may not have experienced the mood change yet from the habit, but I need you to talk about it in the affirmative. It's kind of like when we use the word try. I'm trying to do this. Like nobody believes you. And I used to say this to patients. Like if someone said, I'm trying to quit smoking, what would your vision of that person be? Right? I'm trying to quit smoking. You'd be like, you know what? They're probably in your purse. You probably have some cigarettes in your purse. And so trying is really not succeeding when we talk about it in that way. Because even our vision of what that person looks like or the things they do or the stuff they're carrying around with them is not in support of not doing the habit. It's actually in support of doing the other, like doing the opposite. And so if you say things like, I'm trying to walk more, I bet you don't have good shoes, right? Like if I was going to like visualize you and you said, I'm trying to walk more, you probably don't have good shoes. You probably don't have a raincoat, right? you probably don't have a good, like a favorite route in your head. I don't know. This is how I would visualize you. Whereas if you talk about your habits in the affirmative, and this has actually been talked about elsewhere. I love Atomic Habits, and I'm not stealing their thunder on that at all, where they talk about how you need to be identify with the kind of person who does the habits. And if you've never heard this before, this was really profound for me thinking about habit change. It's like, what does a weightlifter do? Well, they train and they eat well and they take their creatine, right? Like that's what they do. So if I'm going to be that, I got to do that. And the same would be said for whatever habit that you're trying to achieve right now. You are not a person who makes smoothies if you have no blender, or if the blender you have sucks, right? That's not what a smoothie making person would have. They would have the stuff so that they could actually accomplish it. So I want you to talk about your habits as if they've already started to help you, because I'm taking that, like the way you would say, I'm taking these supplements because they help. I'm eliminating alcohol because it helps, right? Not it might help. Not I'm hoping it helps. Not my doctor said it will help. That's the worst. My doctor said this will help. You'll never stick it through. Immediately when you have to go to a conference, you're going to forget to take your supplements with you. Immediately when it gets a little cold, you'll stop walking. If the way that you talk about your habit in your head is, my doctor told me I have to, it's like you're not even remotely bought in on that. Not even remotely. And then you don't do it. And then you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And then, right, like you can see what happens. So you need to talk about it in your head and to others as if it's already helped. Even if our absolute expectation is that it may take 90 days for you to see change. But you're going to talk about it in the affirmative, because then when you're starting to feel those no's in your own head, like, I don't want to go for the walk, your brain is already saying, yeah, but it helps you, Jordan, so you should go, right? Women are motivated to do things that they know are helping them. But if we carry around this like kind of thought baggage that maybe the thing that we're doing isn't going to help, or we're trying, or it was prescribed, but I don't know, right? You can see why we, don't stick with it long enough to see the change. But also, I just feel like it's just sabotaging thoughts to always think about something in the maybe this won't work kind of mentality. So you're going to talk about the habits like it's already helping you. Okay. And this helps my mental health. This helps my PMS. It will make a huge difference for the way that you show up for those habits if you already believe that it's helping. You'll do them more consistently, and I swear they actually work better when you talk that way about them, your habits. And it also will help you start to overcome the challenges that get in the way of us actually doing them, right? Like if you're like, well, my doctor said I should go for a walk, I don't want to go, right? You can see so easily how your choice there would be don't go. Right? The couch sounds way better than doing something that some doctor told you to do. But if you say, my walk really helps my mental health, I don't really feel like going. Now you're like, well, shit, I either cannot go or I can help myself. And it just really changes that frame of mind for how you're going to sort of show up for those habits. So that's number one. And in the Pillars of Perimenopause course, we do some habit structure that is really intentional. So I actually pick the habits that I think are relevant. I don't say, choose a habit and for 6 weeks we're going to track it. I'm like, no, these are the habits that in perimenopause is going to make the hugest difference to how you feel. The biggest difference is huge, just a word. The biggest difference to how you feel. These are the ones you're going to do, and you're going to do them in this order, because some things take a long time to see effect. You start those at the beginning. Some things are hard, so we're going to do those later. once we've gained some confidence, this is how I would work with patients too. So that's what we tackle in the course, is habit change, but like in a very different and very practical way. There's even an opportunity to create your own sort of habit tracking piece of paper because we're old and we want pieces of paper. I'm tired of apps that you never open, right? We're literally going to use a piece of paper, but it's a cool template that we're going to build together to help you track your habits. It's going to be fun. Anyway, so that's it. You're going to talk about the habit like it's already happened. The next thing that honestly gets in the way, and this is for habit change over 40, you need to have a 50% done version of the habit in your head. You also kind of need to understand what the minimum viable product is on your habit. And I talk about this in the course, that we're so black and white, honestly. And I wish that the health and wellness industry hadn't ruined things for us into thinking that if you have a fleck of rice and you're trying to eat no rice, that it's a problem, or that if you miss one day of your workout, that you might as well never go again. I wish that had never happened. But that black and white thinking prevents people from doing things more often than it does encouraging them. Like nowhere ever have I seen someone so encouraged by that level of rigidity and black and white thinking that they thrived with their health goals. Like nowhere. So what you need to know is what's the minimum viable product. So like for me, for example, I've had some pretty decent injuries over the last year with my weightlifting. It wasn't the weightlifting's fault. It was my age's fault, we'll call it. And so immediately when I couldn't train, I was like, well, that's it. I'm going to lose all my muscle mass. And I know that's not true. That's just mentally what the game was that I played. I'm going to lose all my strength. I'm going to have to build from scratch. And my coach said something so valuable, and he was right. He was like, Jordan, you only have to train kind of 2-ish times per week and engage in some of those muscles. And sometimes it could even be body weight related for us to maintain your muscle mass while we recover from your injury. And I was like, okay, my minimum viable product is twice a week, and I can modify the exercises and I still meet my goal, right? My goal being maintain my muscle mass. You need to know what your MVP, minimum viable product, is on your habits in order for you to see improvement. Alcohol is a great example. If you cut your drinking by 50%, it would have a massive impact on your health. So if you have 1 glass of wine, the might as well have 3 is actually very negative. Whereas if you could stick to the 1 glass, that would have a really big impact on your overall health. The minimum viable product there is not that big, right? You just have to decrease by a bit. Same with your walking. Maybe we set a goal of 8,000 steps per day, arbitrarily choosing that number. 5,000 still actually does a lot. And a lot of the research on perimenopause and menopause is that women on average reduce their step count by about 3,000 steps per day. So anything above that, and we're actually kind of winning, even if you set the goal at 8,000 and then there are a couple days a week where that is just flat out impossible, your minimum viable product looks something like 3,000 or 4,000. But if we only hold perfection in our mind as yes, you did it or no, you didn't, we're going to feel like a failure more often. You need to know how many days a week do you have to take your iron for it to work? How many days do I have to go to bed earlier for it to work? How many days do I have to do my gratitude journal for it to work? And some of those things, the answer is a medical answer, right? Like you have to take this medication this many times in a month to see benefit. But sometimes the person who has to answer that is you, and you actually might realize that writing in your gratitude journal only on the weekends, because that's the only time you have time, still helps you. So great. There's your minimum viable, right? Let's just do that for now. And if you happen to, do it on a Wednesday morning, amazing. But understanding that minimum viable product is so valuable because we're busy. And your time is yours, but it's not always yours, right? At this phase of life. And so you have to, in your head, know what the least amount of work is for you to do to see benefit, right? Like that, how great would that be? That if you just knew, like, what's my bare ass minimum on these habits for me to see improvement? Because the other thing that allows you to do is actually be more flexible in your head for how you accomplish them. You know, my goal was to walk this many days in a week, and I can't go all of them. But if I walk around the arena 3 times while my son's warming up for hockey, I've added some steps to my piggy bank. Like, that's decent. That's good enough, right? And so what it allows you to do is actually start to let your habits flow with your life more. If you know what that minimum viable product is, you start to automatically accept lower versions of that gold standard, and you probably do more, right? The mom who walks around the arena 3 times got way more steps than the mom who was mad that she missed her walk and just sits there grouchily not going. But in your mind, again, if you know what that minimum viable is, you're like, okay, well, I'm doing my best. And as long as I hit X, I can still see improvement. Like, how freeing is that, right? Let's figure out what the least amount of work is. And I've said that to my patients before. I'm like, what does a B plus look like in your life, right? What does a B plus look like with your habits? Like, let's shoot for that. You don't need an A plus in habits. You need a B plus all the time. Because what typically happens is we get an A plus for like 2 weeks and then we get a D. That's not the goal. That's not actually what causes change. And my last recommendation is actually around eliminating tension and equipment. Not eliminating equipment, getting equipment. I always find it so funny where we draw the line around the kind of support that we're going to get to help our health, right? Like, we might go to a physio appointment and then the physio's like, it would be really great if you got these bands to help you do your exercises. And then we go home and we look on Amazon and those bands are $39 for a set of 3. And we're like, I don't think I really need those, right? Or another example where you go to the gym, but you don't really know what you're doing and you'd rather pay for a gym membership every month for literal eternity and not really know what you're doing than pay for 1 hour of personal training. I could go on, but I won't. But my point is that quite often when we're doing our habits, there is a point of tension. And I want you to figure out what that tension point is and then get yourself whatever that thing is that makes that tension go away. Do you need better shoes? Do you need a raincoat? Do you need a different leash for your dog? What is it? Do you need sunglasses that don't fall down your face? Do you need those bands that your physio recommended like 7 months ago and you still haven't bought them? Do you need a pill case? Do you need some Tupperware? Do you need a better blender? Because often, and I've watched people do this for lots of years, we will invest in ourselves to a point, and then we draw a line, and in my experience, we draw that line right before the piece of equipment or the person who would make everything better if we just did it. People often ask me, like, how did you make your decision about your walking desk treadmill? And I was like, what decision? That was not a decision. I didn't research desk treadmills. I literally bought one within 5 minutes because what I realized was that the biggest barrier to me getting my steps in was my days that I spent at the office. That was it. I was like, I can't seem to meet my movement goals the 3 days a week that I am in the office. I'm going to get one of those desk treadmill things. And I opened Amazon and I saw one that had literally had like 200,000 reviews. And I was like, purchase. It was a 5-minute or less than 5-minute decision because there was tension in me hitting my goals. So if you're shopping around for the best fill in the blank, if you're waiting for something to go on sale and it never has, if you've been recommended one more step and you've arbitrarily drawn the line before that step and saying, I'm not investing a minute more or a dollar more in this, but I still want to get better, right? Think about it. You are busy. If you want to be successful in your habit change and in your health, you need as much support as possible. Whatever that looks like. If that means you have to buy your butternut squash pre-cut, because that is literally the worst vegetable to cut on earth, then do it, right? And I know that's like 70 cents more for you to get the pre-cut up squash, but in the grand scheme of things, and if we eliminate that tension and get you back in habit flow way more often, I promise the 70 cents won't matter. But many, many, many women I've watched sabotage their own health because they've drawn an arbitrary line right before the solution. So you got to ask yourself that. Are you walking in 10-year-old shoes? Right? Ask yourself that question. So these are the 3 things I want you to think about going forward about habits in your 40s. Talk about it like it already helped you. I'm doing this because it helps the way I feel. I need you to figure out what your minimum viable product is, or it should be prescribed that way, right? I think if you're working with a practitioner who's like, A+ is only around here, that's probably not serving you. You actually need to know what B+ looks like because you're busy. And then lastly, I want you to figure out, where did you draw the line around the support you need to make the change? And is there some piece of equipment, support, something, and that you've drawn a line just before that thing? I want you to think about what would happen if you just moved the line and said, actually, if I get this one thing, if I hire this one person, if I do this one course called Pillars of Perimenopause, shameless plug, Jordan, then I'll have what I need to actually take action and eliminate tension, because we're too tired and we're too busy and we're a bit too burned out for there to be so much tension in how we execute our habits. They have to come with absolute ease. So make sure that you've got the Tupperware and all the things that you need to make your habits actually flow, because that's how you're going to sustain them. I feel like this was a fun episode to record. It felt like we were just kind of sitting together at your kitchen table. I definitely had a coffee before this episode. I would love to invite you to join me in the Pillars of Perimenopause. We're opening, well, it's open now, and you can use the link that's in the show notes. We're closing it on May 1st and just working with this small group. Well, it actually will be a large group, but we're just working with this group. And we're going to close it down for the remainder of the summer. And so you wouldn't have another opportunity to jump in until September. So I would love for you to take this opportunity to feel better before summer. I think getting some of these habits in place before we move into like sort of that like time black hole of July and August would be really beneficial for you. So I'd love to see you. I'd love to see you in the course, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Women's Health Unplugged. My goal is to help you feel more confident about your health. Please remember that what we talked about today in the podcast does not constitute medical advice, nor was a doctor-patient relationship formed. If you have questions about your healthcare or about how today's topic pertains to you, please take it up with your family doctor, your specialist, or someone on your health team.